Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Boy Manning here. Welcome to a Monday edition of the Garden Report, one day ahead of the play-in tournament. And we're finally going to figure out who the Celtics are playing round one. And part of me has a feeling it could be the Hawks again, 2 years after that last series where the Hawks pushed them to 6. Not too much has changed in Atlanta. And of course, still covering them down there is Lauren Williams with AJC. You'll be in Orlando tomorrow, Lauren. What are you expecting?
You know, I think you're more optimistic than I am, Bobby.
You know, I've always liked the Hawks.
You do like I think you just like Atlanta, but I honestly think I honestly think that, you know, it's going to be a tough matchup for them. They split the series. You know, 2 of those games were with both teams at, I want to say, like 90% strength. Whereas that last game that happened on Sunday, it was just really the reserves. So you can't really, you know, it's the NBA obviously, but that splitting of the series obviously has a little bit of a caveat to it. But yeah, I think the Magic is just a really, really tough matchup for the Hawks just because they have so much size. And without Clint Capela, without Larry Nance Jr., the Hawks just lack some of that, you know, equalizing power, if you will. And so it's hard for me to see the Hawks coming away as the victors of this first play-in game. I do think I can see them having some success if they, you know, have to play on Friday night if they don't win tomorrow night. But yeah, I'm not super optimistic right now just because it is a tough matchup and it's Paolo Banchero who just knows how to draw fouls. And unfortunately for the Hawks, they commit a lot of them against Orlando.
Yeah, and he's been rolling. He averaged 30 over 20 games going into that one, I think, specifically. And I think this is the one I'm thinking of here. 119, 112. 2 games ago, the game everyone actually played in. Trey was good, 28 and 10. He shot well in that game. But Paolo, as you mentioned, 12 of 24, 33, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. The three-pointer could maybe swing things for Atlanta a little bit because Orlando's just not going to get a lot of threes up, but they hit the ones they took in that game, and that swung things quite a bit there. And Banchero was 2 of 5, got to the free throw line, and their defense is so good that they got to 119, and that was more than enough. And that game wasn't that close from what I remember as the final score looked there.
More so toward, like, it was close in the first half, and then the Magic just kind of ran away with it a little bit in the third quarter and kind of stopped that Hawks run toward the end of the fourth. But the Hawks just have struggled a little bit with physical teams. They've been a lot better with them this year as a whole, but there's just something that they can't quite figure out with how to counteract how the Magic play defense. And you know, the Hawks aren't a great team when it comes to defending the 3, which is one of the reasons why the Magic had such success last week. So I think if they're able to have much better rotations out to some of those guys that they gave up those wide open shots to last week, Tuesday, I think they could have a little bit more of a success. But it's just so tough for me to see them ultimately coming out with that game, especially if Franz gets going. Franz didn't really get going in that game last week. You know, Dyson had a lot of success defending him, but yeah, again, it's just I'm not super optimistic, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Magic are 5-point favorites. That's significant. Home court, I think, will help there for them as well. And this, you know, the Hawks shouldn't be here. I know this is where they're destined to be, it feels like, in this play-in tournament. But they were a different team early in the year. And, you know, when you look back, they took 2 out of 3 from the Celtics, and both of those were at TD Garden. The overtime one where Drew was throwing the ball all over the place late in that game and fouled Trae Young in the bonus up 2, and that let the game go to overtime. Jalen Johnson, who's now out for the season, had 14 and 13 in that game. And I felt like he was becoming the Hawks' best player earlier this season, or at least most important player, as we've seen since he went down there. And that was really the injury that devastated me most this season across the league, because I thought the Hawks had some hope of maybe being above that play-in line, or if things went well, being a home court team in the East and one of the better teams in the East there. But he goes down on January 23rd. If we look back at what they've been since then, it's not too different. I was actually surprised when I looked at like the record and all that. Most it's hovering around 500, a little below. I believe the exact number is 18 and 21, and pretty much a net 0. So they've just like, if we go back 5 years with the Hawks, I think to like 2020, 2021, they're exactly 500 over that stretch. And so I guess in some way going into this play-in tournament, like you look at it on the surface and say, all right, Johnson's out. They're not the same. They haven't been the same, but they've kind of been the same. And they made some trades at the deadline. They got some pieces here who I think can help them in this game. Karis LeVert is a guy who can go off any given night. You've mentioned George Niang being a guy that can change some things here, especially with the three-point shooting. And then you even throw Terrence Mann into the mix, who I like generally as a player. But they're just in this weird place where Johnson goes down. Things actually didn't change that much in terms of like their record night to night. They're still this streaky, inconsistent team. They traded Hunter, which would make you think like, all right, they're selling, they're about to go into the lottery, and they're still here. And so like part of me, I know you don't think they're going to win this game. I don't think they're going to win this game either, but there's still that same Hawks team. It's still Trae Young. It's still mostly the same thing we've been watching for a handful of years here. So they could win this game. It wouldn't stun me.
I don't think it would stun me if they won, just because they're a team that's very competitive. They know how to rise to the occasion. And, as you mentioned, Trae Young has been playing really, really well as of late. They're really starting to mesh with George and Karis, and you mentioned Terrence. Krejci's been, they have a lot of pieces that know how to string together a good basketball game. But it's just, to me, this is a team that would have been just significantly better and significantly different if Jalen Johnson was on the floor with them, just because he adds some much needed size. And as well as Mo Gay played the last 2 games, those were against teams that were planning on tanking or were in the process of tanking. And so, Mo can do some really great things, but he's just so young and so raw, and he just has so much more room to grow. His ceiling is very high, so he's just very far from a finished product. But I think at the end of the day, no matter what happens with this Hawks team, it was a big developmental year for them. And while it's tough for some Hawks fans to maybe swallow that pill, it ultimately, I think, sets them up for the future. And so I think that's kind of what you want to look for. It's not that it's a moral victory per se, but, you're seeing some good things out of Zachary Reese-Shea. I mentioned Mo Gay, Vit Krejci. There's just a lot of good development happening in the Hawks system. And so even if, they make it to the playoffs and they're a first round exit, it's still some valuable experience that you only get by going through that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mo Gay emerging there. I think he was in like one of those draft trades with the Celtics a couple years ago, and he's steadily
That
climbed
was
up
2
here.
years ago.
Yeah, he was in that Jordan Walsh trade where the Celtics just kept trading back.
Yeah.
Kobe Jones was in there too. They traded back like 3 times, then they took Walsh. So interesting to see him emerge here. Obviously, it's because Johnson's out, Hunter going to Cleveland. I still don't feel like they got enough for Hunter, but alas. And then they traded your guy Bogey, who they had attached picks to, and is looking pretty good out there with the Clippers. I don't know how
he
they
helped
ended
them
up
get to
having
the 4th seed in the West. So
yeah, I don't know how they ended up having to attach picks to him to trade him, but it's Hawks being
he
Hawks.
wasn't having but he wasn't having a great season. So I can see where, you would want to give teams incentive to move him.
Yeah. And again, like you said, there's so many players here who you just like. Young pulling it up since the Johnson injury. Not super efficient shooting. I think that's been the knock on him this year. But 25 and 11 and a half assists a game. It's carrying them a little bit
And he's
over that
getting to the free
stretch.
throw line. He's getting to the free throw line.
8 free throws a game, hitting 89% of them. Okongwu has 15 a game over that stretch, and we should mention too, Clint Capela going down on
They also, I mean,
March
they'd
10th.
moved him. Yeah, well, they'd moved Clint to the starting. I'm sorry, they moved Onyeka to the starting lineup in January. So he's been going through that. He went through that adjustment period early on, but has since really taken off. And then Clint was coming off the bench, but then, as you mentioned, he got hurt around March 10th.
And I always loved Okongwu, and that game specifically, the one that the Hawks won in overtime in Boston. Big stop on Jalen down the stretch. Jalen Brown switching out to the perimeter. I want to say he finished that game with just this crazy line. Let me see if I can find it here. 19, 13, and 4 blocks for Okongwu in that game. Hit a couple threes as well. So he's played well against Boston this year from what I can remember. And obviously now in that starting role, as you mentioned as well. The biggest reason, so we've gone back and forth a lot, like who would push the Celtics here more, the Magic or the Hawks?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty definitively the Magic, but the only thing I'll give Atlanta here as we look at them is their competitiveness against Boston in recent years. We remember that series last year where DeJounte took like 100 shots and they came back from down 20-something. I know it was at the end of the year and it didn't mean a ton. Yep. Trey's played well against the Celtics in his career. But to me, the most significant thing is Quinn Snyder, to me, coaches as well against Joe Mazzulla as anyone else in the league. Like, he knows they got to get the threes up against them. He knows that they got to manage that differential. The offensive rebounding puts a ton of pressure that he sends at Boston. When they're trying to grab their own misses, I think that's been a big way for the Hawks to stay in some of these games that we've watched between these two over the years. And I think he just kind of has that cutting edge mindset on the game now that certain, I guess, old school coaches or coaches who aren't as, in line with some of Missoula's philosophies are like, I think of Tom Thibodeau specifically, in that like they don't get the threes up against Boston. They're not able to find these little ways to stay in games and things just end up piling up against them. The Hawks, I feel like, stay in games against the Celtics, and maybe they'll catch a break or two here or there, and Young will hit some shots in a key moment, and they're able to swing a game. So that, to me, along with the fact that they can actually put the ball in the basket, is the reason that I think the Hawks might actually have more of a case than people think of challenging the Celtics more than the Magic do.
I think, though, when you remember those Boston games, Porzingis didn't play in them, did he?
Nope.
So that's
I don't believe so.
So that's a huge swing in Boston's direction. And one of the reasons why I think the Magic might be a better matchup, or, just because of that size differential. And, Okongwu has been solid, but I just think that with Mo being so young, even though he has such good instincts on the defensive end, it's still experience that he would lack going up against a Porzingis or an Al Horford. And that would just be a tough position to put a 21-year-old, a 22-year-old in.
Yeah, first game they didn't have Porzingis. Second game they didn't have Porzingis. The Hawks won as well in Boston there, the 2 games in Boston. I'm trying to remember that first one that they won. They won 117, 116.
I think the first one Porzingis played, but not a lot.
No, he was out to start the year, so he would have been out for that one as well.
Okay.
White hit 7 threes, had 31 points. Brown had 37. So the Hawks just didn't guard Boston in this one, and they still found a way to win because Daniels had 28, and man, we got to talk about him. The year he's had. He had 6 steals in that game. He finished the year with almost 100 more steals than anyone else. And it was this weird sequence of events where the DeJounte trade doesn't work out. Hawks sent all of these picks out to San Antonio.
Oh,
and then
yes.
And then they flip it forward. get a Lakers
And
pick
get
back this
Dyson.
year and get Dyson, who's just been out of this world and might even win Defensive Player of the Year.
Who I think should
He'll
win
be a big
defensive.
factor in this series. You think?
He should win it, in my opinion.
How come?
I don't know. I just feel like when a guy is putting up historic numbers like this, and the fact that he's helped to lift this Hawks defense from being, bottom of the league to, yes, it's the middle of the pack. I understand, but that's a huge jump from a team that, struggled defensively last season. So if you're talking about the most impactful player on the defensive end, I mean, he's that, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a crowded field.
It
Draymond's
is.
a favorite. I really don't get that. I gotta look into that a little more. Why
Legacy
he
pick is
vaulted
what
up to
they
the top.
say. So are they calling him a legacy pick?
I don't really get it. It's not like Golden State had this world break. I guess it was better after Butler arrived, but they didn't have this dominant defense to start this year. I mean, if we're gonna go the Marcus Smart route and give someone a award for the team's success defensively, you probably have to go Lou Dort with Oklahoma City there, and he should get a longer look than I think he has here as well. Zubac has been great. You're always gonna have Rudy in the mix there. There's so many choices. Evan Mobley, I love Evan Mobley, and I think he's game to game probably the most impactful of all these guys. I don't know who I would pick.
I think he would be the one that wins it. Honestly.
Hasn't Daniels talked a little bit this year about Smart winning that and how he wanted to
he used to watch. He watched. Yep, he did talk about that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but yeah, he did say he kind of watched what Marcus did that year. He won it. What was that?
2022. Yeah, when they went to the finals that year. Probably should have been Rob Williams, but Rob went down, and then Smart ended up getting the momentum after that. So you got him rolling. You got Ricochet, who is going to be an interesting swing guy here. Do you think he'll be super involved here, given that it's the playoffs, given that it'll be the first high leverage situation for him coming in? Obviously, you don't have a ton of a choice if you're the Hawks here with a couple guys missing injury-wise.
They need him. There's not really any other option, and he's probably their most efficient scorer as of late.
51 from the field, 42 from three since Johnson went down. Pretty good.
Scoring 35 plus points in 2 of the last 5 games.
Really impressive. At what, 19?
He just turned 20, April 8th.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten enough love this year. He's been awesome.
He's and just one of the nicest kids that's out there. Works so hard. But yeah, I think like we were saying, the Hawks just don't really have many other options but to play him some significant minutes in this postseason run. And the thing with Zach, though, is that he does have experience. Granted, it was playing in Europe, but he does have experience of playing in a playoff situation and understanding the stakes that comes with. I mean, he's played professional basketball since he's 16. So just the level of poise that he shows, I don't think really any moment is too big for him. But if they cut back on Zach's minutes a little bit in the postseason, it's likely because a guy like Karis LeVert is playing really, really well. Maybe Terrence is playing really, really well, and then George is just shooting the crap out of the ball. But really, they need him to space the floor. So I think Zach gets a lot of burn.
Yeah, and so as I look at it, it's Trey, Daniels, Ricochet, Moge, Okongwu, probably in their lineup tomorrow. And then a little LeVert off the bench, George Niang, Terrence Mann. Yeah, they're getting deep into that lineup there, but there are a number of guys who can really score there. It's just always that question that we've asked with the Hawks for years.
So long as no one gets hurt, they're really going to play. It's going to be a 9-man rotation, I think, especially because they've shifted quite a bit of Mo's minutes off of the bench, playing him at the 5. He's been like the backup over Don Barlow. And so if they're in a situation where they might play Barlow, but I really think it's going to be that 9-man rotation, and you get quite a few minutes from Mo at the 5.
Yeah, and no Capela, and obviously you said they made the change prior to that injury there. It's another development here that, makes him just a little bit thinner. He goes down on March 10th. So since
Well, that was
then,
first for family reasons, and then he's been dealing with kind of like a finger injury.
and yeah, went for the surgery, right?
I don't think he had surgery. No.
Oh, okay.
He's just been dealing with a finger thing.
Okay, so he's not going to be available on Tuesday. Is there any chance he comes back in the first round?
They haven't given us an update on him yet.
All right, so we won't rule it out. 19th in defense since he went down. Again, pretty much the same. 116 points per 100 allowed there. The offense has gotten a little better over that stretch since he's been out. Again, weaker schedule, as you mentioned, probably a little bit of a factor there, but they're 10-8 since Clint exited the lineup there. 120 points per 100. That's the same as the Celtics over that stretch, tied for 4th in the league. So this is the thing. They can score. They can put up points. They can stay in a game, and they can put the ball in the basket.
But if the Celtics are hot, there's no chance.
They can't guard them. And so that's where it really gets interesting because the Celtics, you mentioned Porzingis' absence in those first games. He's been out of this world since he came back from his injury and illness more recently. Shooting the ball well now too, and that's just something that the Hawks are really going to struggle to account for beyond trying to slow Tatum. And then the Brown thing, I don't even want to talk about it because we've talked about it over and over and over and over again at this point.
Yeah.
But his health going into the start of the series is a bit of a factor that could potentially swing things in either direction.
Sure, but the Celtics are just such a deep team. I mean, just up and down the lineup, you can see a guy like Hauser going off, and the Hawks have not really a lot of answers.
We mentioned it. Derek White at 31 in one of these games.
Exactly. Derek White, Drew Holiday could go off. Peyton Pritchard could go off. Luke Cornett can be a tough matchup for Okongwu here and there, just again because of size. Al Horford has been a Hawks killer, going up against his former franchise. Again, just up and down the lineup, you can name guys that will give the Hawks trouble. And yes, maybe
and Nance is hurt too, right?
Yep. So who knows if they bring him back, especially because he's been dealing with a broken bone in his knee.
Yeah, and that Cornette thing's, I'm glad you bring that up because he's going to be playing with the second unit. Celtics love playing big in the bench, and the Hawks really don't have a backup center with size right now. So that's a big time problem. And if we're comparing these teams, the Magic have much more size. They have like 4 centers that they can throw out there at least to match up with Boston in that sense.
So it's just so hard for me to see this team, especially too. Okay, so if the Hawks don't win tomorrow night, they play Friday, and it's either Chicago
Bulls or Heat.
or Heat. And so the Hawks have historically struggled against the Heat. They dropped the season series between them, I think 1-3 or 3-1. And granted, all of the games were pretty close, but again, it comes down to that 3-point shooting. Giddey has been playing for the Bulls. Giddey has been playing really, really well as of late, as well as Bozelis. So it's just, yeah.
There's always tough. That question too. If you're Atlanta, is it the worst thing to lose this game and dodge the Celtics, fall down to Cleveland?
I mean, I don't think they would ever dodge anything because here's the thing: Cleveland isn't a good matchup for them either.
Right.
The Twin Towers with Allen and Mobley, and then you got Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. Again, going up and down the lineup, people who can give them trouble. DeAndre Hunter could give them trouble. So it's
the Hunter rematch is in the cards.
Yeah, maybe. So
I think that's how it's gonna go. I got the Magic tomorrow. I want to talk a little bit of Celtics before we get you out of here and on to Orlando, where you're gonna be heading tomorrow. But I want to shout out if you happen to be in Orlando and you want to see this playing game, or you're down there and want to see some first round games, if it's going to be Magic Celtics, if you're in Atlanta and it's Hawks Celtics, I know a lot of Celtics fans are down there. Check out the Game Time app. They got your tickets wherever these games are going to be, even in Boston. Boston's a tougher ticket, but Game Time has it as well, with panoramic views of your seat where you can see exactly where you're going to be sitting. They got the all-in pricing, so you know exactly what you're going to be paying before you get to checkout. And they got the guarantee, and they're going to give you 110% of the price difference if they don't give you the best deal over there on Game Time. So go check them out. I love the app. I love the experience over there. Baseball's back as well. I'm going to Atlanta. I'm going to be trying to catch a Braves game while I'm down there. If I'm in Orlando, maybe I'll drive over to Tampa and use Game Time to catch the Rays playing over there in Tampa. Either way, I'm going to be seeing some baseball while I'm on the road covering these games here. And then you got Fenway too. Red Sox will be back soon enough playing some games over there. You also got concerts, which I always love seeing as well. All kinds of events, comedy available over there as well on the app. So it's not just sports, over on the Game Time app as well. And again, just really easy to use, really easy to see how good of a deal you're getting over there. There's all kinds of flash and zone deals as well over on the app. So go check it out, download it today, and use the code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase over on the Game Time app. What time is it? Game time. So what time's the game tomorrow?
7:30.
So 7:30. We will have a post-game show for this one, reacting to who the Celtics are going to play first round. Again, winner of this game is going to be in Boston on Sunday. No time yet for game one. I'm a little bummed it's Sunday. Wanted Saturday. Want to get into this thing sooner, so we're not just sitting around here all week. But whatever, we'll go on Sunday. We'll expedite my Easter brunch and head over to the Garden. So yeah.
So worried
Yeah,
about
first
your
round is
brunch.
here. I'm very worried about my brunch and church.
Good for you
But yeah.
for being a good church goer on Easter.
Celtics, Lauren. Are they going to do it
Yes.
again?
I think it's tough with OKC.
You like OKC. I do too right now.
I like OKC. Obviously, I want to see what happens in the first round of the playoffs and how they handle maybe the shift in how officials handle and manage games. But I really like OKC. And before Cleveland kind of hit that skid late in the season, I really liked them coming out of the East as well. So I don't know, Bobby. I don't know
I don't know
if I
either.
can say the Celtics.
Yeah, the road's going to be much harder. Now, who'd they play last year around when the Heat was super depleted? So I think even first round could be tougher here when you're talking about the Hawks or Magic compared to what that was last year. Second round was, who'd they play second round? Cavs. Mitchell went down. Allen never played. Third round, it's Indiana. Halliburton went down. So I hate the easiest path, everything. But listen, it was an easy-ish path.
Easier path.
Yeah, than maybe some other champions. So this year is going to be tougher. You're talking Magic or Hawks. You're talking Pistons, who I love.
I love
and
the
Knicks.
Pistons.
The Knicks are going to be tough too, even though the Celtics have dominated them. And then you get into the Cavs. But you know who I'm thinking about too here? And, I had this revelation the other day thinking about all these teams in the East, because the Cavs, I have a lot of respect for them. They split the season series with the Celtics, 2 big comeback wins. But I think the toughest team in the East for the Celtics might once again be the Pacers. Just stylistically, they played them so tough in that 4-game sweep in the East Finals last year, even after when Halliburton went down. They beat them again at the start of this year. And they just play a style that's so much faster than the way Boston plays. And the Hawks can get into that a little bit too, which, might be a nice preview for that. I think there might end up being an East Finals rematch of last year, Celtics-Pacers, if the Pacers can get through the Bucks here. And then they're probably, if healthy, a tough out for the Cavs in round 2.
I don't know.
You're going Cavs?
I'm going Cavs. Again, so long as they're healthy. I just like the depth that they have. I like how they're able to. I don't know. They just have so much versatility on that roster, and Kenny Atkinson can have some of these creative lineups that coaches might tend to experiment with a little bit at the start of the playoffs. So we'll see.
I'm so glad they got Hunter. That was an awesome move for them.
Yes. And then Ty Jerome has just been playing out of his mind. So he might play his way into a new contract with a new team.
So Hunter to start the year with Atlanta, 19-3-3, 46 from the field, 39 from three. He had like the best per 36 stats anyone's ever seen because he was only playing 20-something minutes, and he was just so efficient in those. Goes to Cleveland. He's actually playing less minutes there too, so they've kind of followed that. He does
better with less. Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. 25 minutes, just 5 starts there. Atkinson was in Boston earlier this year saying, I know you guys want me to start him, but we're not gonna. 14 4, shooting 48 from the field with Cleveland, 43 from three. Yeah, Atlanta found this role for him earlier this year that the Cavs have followed their lead on, and they've been looking for that wing. They've been looking for that wing to match up with Boston for years now.
It's working.
And he's not Tatum or Brown, but he's at least bigger, offensively capable, and you can attack him on defense. And that's really...
And he has a lot of help. That's the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Between Mobley and Allen, he doesn't have to do as much as the Hawks asked of him early in his career.
Right. So, yeah, I really like where they're at. I love that roster. They have the size to challenge Boston, but again, the Celtics, it's been like their superpower this year, playing Horford and Porzingis together, going a little bigger. That can help them get by if Brown can't play as much right here. And then the Cornet thing you mentioned, I think people are going to be shocked by how good Cornet's been this year and how much he's going to play in the playoffs right from the first game.
Well, I remember when, of course, Porzingis went down and they were playing with Cornet a lot. You could tell that it was a little bit of an adjustment period for him, but he's really, really started to find his footing.
He's playing so confident right now, too. Like on the boards, looking for his scoring. I've been the biggest Cornet advocate, as I'm sure you know, a little bit for years. And this is like the ultimate victory lap for me, seeing what he's doing this year. So
his playoff was your shining moment.
Yeah. Well, I need it to carry over. We'll see if that actually happens.
It might. We'll see.
I think it's gonna. First game, funny enough, Capela started that first Hawks Celtics game. It was his first career start, I think, where when Porzingis was down alongside Horford. He had 10 and 7 that night. It was really good. Celtics won those minutes by 31, blowout win. Tatum was great. Brown didn't play. So that was the first game down in Atlanta. Second game we mentioned was a 1-point win for the Hawks in season tournament. Was it at the buzzer?
Yeah, put back from Okongwu.
Okongwu had 15 and 6 that game. 28 for Daniels, as I mentioned. White had 31, but not enough for the Celtics. Porzingis was out. And Cornet didn't play a lot in that game either. These teams had some weird games against each other this year. Capela played 21 in that one. It looked like Capela was stepping into that backup role a little bit with Porzingis out early.
I remember that.
That came and went. Hawks traded everybody after that. I think the third game, you still had mostly the same roster. Vit Krejci started that one. Young had 28 and 11. Hit the game-tying free throws, as I mentioned. Holiday fouling him for some reason. Win the bonus up to. Hunter had 16. Okongwu had 19 and 13 in that one, and they won that one as well. Limited the Celtics, too, in that one. Tatum only had 23. Brown had 24. 21 for White. So, even in the games, and Cornet had 17 and 7 in that one. So that's when he was stepping into the bigger role at that point. Even in the games where the Hawks won, they couldn't stop the Celtics. And that's going to be the tough thing here. They won 2 games by 1 point each. And Celtics were able to score 4 points in the second one, the overtime. But Celtics were able to score mostly at will against them. And so then that conversation for years with the Hawks, can they get enough defensive pressure and I don't know. Have they been defending any better in your eyes with this new look lineup since some guys have gone down?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's just I think one of their weaker points, and I hate to like pick out somebody's name, is just Niang. He's just not where you would want a veteran player to be, especially of his size. And sure, like Trey has his moment, but he's definitely not the defensive liability that people label him as. He's actually been quite good, averaging 1.2 steals per game. And so they're definitely better. I think where they get into trouble is that their defensive rotations can be non-existent to the point that they're leaving way too many guys open for wide open threes. So I think as long as communication
That's not going to work against Boston.
Exactly. And that's why I don't know if they'll have a strong night tomorrow, especially if they're leaving guys like Corey Joseph or Contavious Caldwell Pope open, or even Paolo, Franz. So Franz is of course having a down year from three. I think he's like 29%. But
he's in the 20s, yep.
Yeah, but nothing like facing the Hawks to kind of get you out of a 3-point shooting slump.
So the two early games, looking back at those, February 10th, Hawks held the Magic to 106 and won, even though they didn't score a ton in that game. Young at 19, didn't shoot well from three. Reece Shea had double figures, as did Daniels, but not a lot of scoring up and down the lineup in that one. LeVert was good. Wagner, 37 in that one. Paolo, 31, but no one else scored on the roster. Literally nobody.
They were able to limit the bench. And that's the thing. So in watching yesterday's game against the Magic, it was just crazy to me how wide of the gap there was between these two teams' reserves. And so it's like you're wondering what's going on down in Orlando with that development.
No one can score off their bench.
Yeah. It's wild.
And they played the Celtics on Wednesday. No one played for the Celtics. Porzingis, Horford, Brown, Tatum, White, Holiday, all out, Horford. And they still only put up 96. So their defense is awesome. It's physical, and they've held the Hawks down in these games offensively. But they're still so close because the Magic just can't score. In the second game of the year, 114, 108. Magic win by 6 in that game. But the Hawks still stay in it the whole way. So this is going to be a game, and I think the 5-point spread reflects that. This is going to be close-ish. Can the Hawks get one big-time scoring performance to break through? And they got 38 from Young in that game and still lost there. So it might just come down to the bench scoring, as you mentioned there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're really going to need. And Niang needs to get hot. He needs to knock those threes down.
Yeah, and Terrence Mann, 54, 38 shooting since he got to Atlanta. So he's been shooting well as well with his new team. I've always liked him, obviously being a mass guy as well. And Clippers.
So is George.
Lawrence / Methuen. They're both on the north, like up near New Hampshire shore of things. So similar area, similar Lowell for Mann and Methuen, Lawrence for Yang. So some mass representation on Atlanta.
So is that why
could be a story?
I know. If they play Boston.
There you go. Already got your first story for the series. I think it's going to be the Magic. Lauren thinks it's going to be the Magic, but we had to give the Hawks their due diligence here because you never know how these games are going to go. An injury could happen. Big swing in a game, shooting. All those things could swing this game in either direction here. And these teams are close enough where there's no slam dunk either way. Celtics probably going to beat either of these teams in 5, maybe 6 at the most if it comes down to it. Hawks did push that series to 6 a couple years ago, but much different circumstances for Boston, especially in that one. So we will react again tomorrow. We'll have a post-game show here on the Garden Report after that game concludes. Lauren will have coverage down there. So go check her out at Williams Lauren L over on the Twitter machine and in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Go read her work over there, as this could be her last game covering them this year or start of a bunch of
Not
extra
the
games.
last game. If the Hawks lose,
Oh,
remember
that's
they play
right.
Friday.
I always forget about that. Yeah, it doesn't matter for Boston. They were on the other side. I'm glad they're the 2 seed this year because we actually find out on Tuesday rather than waiting for like 3 games to happen over the course of the whole week until we figure things out. So that's a nice part of Boston being the 2 seed this time. They're practicing up here tomorrow, so follow along with our coverage of that. And again, show some love to our sponsors like Game Time. Go over there and use that code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Thanks, Lauren, for joining us. Maybe we'll talk to you if the series happens up here in Boston and down there in Atlanta. And that's it for us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night, as I said, after that game. So join us live then. Check out our episode yesterday with Chris Gasper, who talked more about the Jalen situation. I spared you guys of it today, so enjoy the one day where we didn't have to talk about Jalen Brown and his knee. So we'll be back to that tomorrow. Hopefully get some more updates on that at practice as well. So good night. We will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks again, Lauren. And that's it. Peace.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're gonna do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
fly out over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke